I'm Mark with the Anatomy of Wellness, and today I'm going to teach you how to do a half kneeling hip flexor stretch. So let's talk about the half kneeling hip flexor stretch. Why do we want to do this? Well, a lot of us, most of us, have really tight hip flexors. But what are your hip flexors? Well, simply put, your hip flexors are the muscles that cross over the front side of your hip. Okay, they help in doing a motion called hip flexion, or if you want to think of it more simply, any motion in which your leg is coming up towards your body or your chest. Okay, this is what we call hip flexion. So why do these muscles get tight on a lot of us? Well, as you can see, when you sit down, you're actually bringing your knees up closer to your chest. So if I was standing up straight, right, that would be further away from me. That would have those muscles elongated. But as soon as I sit down, my knees come up to my chest, and it puts those hip flexor muscles in a shortened state or a shortened position. So when we sit down all day long, especially for us who work at a desk or work in an office space or do anything for sitting for long periods of time, our hip flexor muscles get used to being in that shortened state, and then they like to stay there. And so when we go to stand back up and we try and re-lengthen those out, we're just not quite able to get there like we used to. We just get really stiff and tight, okay? Tight hip flexors can lead to low back pain. You actually have some hip flexors that tie back into your low back. They can help, or not help, but they can contribute to poor posture. They can be troublesome for athletes when they go up and go try and run, because when you're running, you got to be able to extend your leg behind you. So if you're tight up here in the front, it's going to limit that ability of your leg to get back behind you as you're trying to propel yourself forward when you're running. Or really even doing any kind of functional movement, jumping, any of that kind of stuff. So if you're an athlete, you really want to make sure you have good, nice and loose hip flexors. So really important muscle to stretch out, and it's really tight on all of us because we do a lot of sitting. So how exactly can we do a hip flexor stretch? There's a lot of different ways to do hip flexor stretches. I personally like to do the half kneeling technique or form myself. I think it's the most effective and one of the easiest ones for people to do. So how do we do this? We're going to do this over here on the ground. And I will say for this, you'll see this here in a second, but it's actually good to have some kind of yoga mat or some kind of a pad to do this stretch with, because it can be a little bit tough on the knees because you're actually going to have one knee down on the floor. So don't do it on like a hardwood floor or something like that, as it can kind of bother your knees. So find something kind of soft and squishy, even just like a pillow or something you could put under the one knee. That's helpful. But I do have a yoga mat. That's a great way to go ahead and do that. So let me show you how it's done. So you're going to come down into what we call a half kneeling position, or if you want to think of it as a lunge position, that's another way to think of it. Again, I'll just show you how to do it on one side, but you will want to do this on both sides so you can stretch out both of your hip flexors. So in this instance, I'm stretching out my left hip flexor. So my left leg is down, and this is what I was talking about. Left knee's on the ground, leg out behind you. I like to let my foot go flat. I don't like having my toes up like this. Just let that go out flat. Sometimes people will teach you that differently. Doesn't make a huge difference, but this I feel like is just more comfortable for most people. Other leg, right leg's up here in front, foot flat, kind of starting with your knee bent at that 90-degree angle. Okay. This is your starting position. Okay. The other last thing you want to check for is your torso. You don't want to be slouched over. You also don't want to be extended way far back. Okay, that'll put strain on your back and can kind of pinch on things. So just a nice upright, normal posture, kind of neutral spine position is great. Okay. From here, again, we're stretching out the left side. So the leg that's down and behind us is the side that we're stretching. And then all you're going to do is you're going to keep this foot down, but you're going to kind of shift your hips forward with this front knee. And as you do that, you'll see my hips kind of come forward. My leg is actually starting to extend back behind me further, and that's going to allow my hip flexors on that side to stretch. Okay. I like to put both my hands up on my front knee just for support. Sometimes it's helpful to use one of these exercise balls back here, like this green one. You can put it on the side with the down leg, kind of use that as a support, or you can grab like a stool or a chair or even a wall to help support you. But this works just fine for me like this. So you're going to go down until you feel that stretching through the front side of your hip. Just a discomfort of a stretch, no pain, especially if you feel pain in the back. Don't do this stretch, okay? And again, if you're feeling pain in the back, make sure you're not leaning way far back or something. Just make sure in that neutral spine position. Hold that for 30 seconds. After 30 seconds, you can return to your start position. You can do about 2 or 3 of those on each side. I like to alternate between sides, so then I would switch to my other leg and stretch out my other side before coming back and finishing up my other ones. But you can do 3 in a row on one side, then switch, kind of whatever works best for you. This is a great one to do at the end of the day, like I was mentioning, after you've been sitting for a long time. Kind of stretch those hip flexors out that have gotten tight throughout the day. It's a good one to do at like a lunchtime break, kind of reset the hip flexors, loosen them up a little bit so you can go into the rest of your day a little bit more loose. But yeah, about once or twice a day, 2 or 3 times on each side, hold it for about 30 seconds.